What moments from your past, maybe childhood, growing up, young adulthood, whatever, that have shaped the path leading to who you are now and the passions that drive you today?
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on the show. It's an honor. And I'll weave a little bit of a narrative through that, in that as a kid, I was blessed with two parents who were very focused, very driven. They were great parents, paid great attention to their three kids, but they set such a wonderful example of how to be focused, particularly on focused on something that you love and that you want to do. And that has served me well, and I have had a long career in what's called business development. That's a fancy word for sales. And in that time frame, I learned pretty quickly that these amazingly, stunningly good looks and charisma were only going to get me so far. And I ended up leaning back into how I used my time. And that began and how I defined my success in my career as tried to make his life easy for me and as easy for my clients by making sure that I didn't either cost them time or help them with their time. And that just basically from there had me to start my own business. So I've been focused on time a lot for most of my life, and when I use it well, things seem to go well.
What, like, true role has time played in your life? Like, what is your relationship with time? Since you have, like, I mean, time is just a construct that humans made up
Hmm.
to be organized, be set deadlines to get certain things done within a certain constructed time frame. So I just want to know what's your relationship with time, because I think everybody's relationship with time is kind of individual. Like, we all have a relationship with time.
That's a great question. I love that question. I'll approach it from two ways. The first one is that we all use and consume time at the same rate. So a second for me is the same as a second for you, and on
Yeah.
upward to a year, decade, whatever. So we consume it at the same rate. Doesn't matter where you're at. We can sit in the same room and say, watch a movie, and we've consumed 90 minutes of time, but may have both different views of the use of that time. So you may have really liked that movie. I may have not liked it at all. And so therefore we could have sat through 90 minutes of the same consumption of time, coming away with with a very different feeling of how it's used. And you talked about how the uniqueness for each individual one of us on how we feel and sense we use that time. That's what I do with clients to help them craft their own lifestyle strategy tied back to that use of time, because it might be different for all of us.
So, so what's your relationship with time?
So I have a love-hate relationship with time. Uh,
Mm,
I I love the fact that when I use my time well, it's like I have more time to spend. So if I'm
mm.
more productive, and let's say I check off all the things that I wanted to do that day, both personally and professionally, I feel really, really good about how I consumed and then used my time. The hate relationship comes in when I allow myself to either be distracted, I put too much on the plate to think I'm going to get it done. And then at the end of the day, I'm frustrated because I wasn't as productive as I wanted to be.
How do you feel about the, I guess, the whole time freedom, financial freedom, retirement? Because That's a big goal. It's a big goal of mine personally to, I guess, reach financial freedom, financial independence, mostly financial independence, where I don't have to like go to like another job working for somebody else. I work for myself. Um, but also a common problem with entrepreneurs, I think, is we don't have healthy boundaries with time management. You'll find like the hustle and grind culture where just work 16-hour days and just sleep and just work again 16-hour days until you're burnt out. Um, so what do you, like I guess my question is what would your advice be to somebody who maybe has reached that? They do have time freedom because they have enough financial, like they don't have to go to work. Like they have whatever incomes, investments coming in that they're retired, maybe for the retirees that have retirement checks coming in, they don't have to actually go to work or anything.
Mhm.
They just like what would your advice be to those types of people?
So I love your analogy of financial freedom and independence. I think that that is something we should all strive for, regardless of where we're at in our careers or our lives, because simply that allows you flexibility to pursue more of the personal stuff. Now, for those particularly who have hit retirement age or thinking about retirement, I always ask them to consider this factor. If you're working 48 hours a week, let's just use that as an analogy as an entrepreneur. That is 40% of your awake time, the time that your eyelids are open and you're doing stuff. If you take that away, then because you choose not to work, you have 40% of your awake time you have to fill with something. And to use the old adage, in nature abhors a vacuum, so does time. Time abhors a vacuum. So it's going to get consumed one way or the other. But if you have no plan, no idea of what you're going to do with that time, then that financial freedom and independence may not mean a whole lot for you. So that's where I challenge people as you strive for your financial freedom and independence, try to figure out the life you want to lead when you get that independence and try to live some of those elements now while you're still earning money. So you get an idea of what's going to be important to you once you take away the work element, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, because to me, I personally don't believe in retirement because of that. Because I believe humans were meant to work, and if you could find work that you actually enjoy doing, um, and you get paid for it and you can earn a living and whatever, then that's all you need, you know? That's how you could fill your time. But you don't I think the freedom part is where you could basically do that, but you don't have to do that. Does
And
that
I
make
like,
sense?
yeah, it does, because for us as entrepreneurs, uh, many entrepreneurs, for me, I wanted to own my own business because I wanted more control of my time. That
Mm,
was the idea, is I am investing my time in someone else's business. No, no worries there. Whatever, listener, if you work for somebody else and they're paying you for it,
mhm,
wonderful. But you then know that you're going to have to allocate a set amount of time
for
to
yourself.
for achieving their goal so you
Oh,
can work
yeah.
there. And then afterwards, you got to try to figure out, what can I do in the rest of that time to fulfill what
Yeah.
I want to do.
You
And
have
so,
less time for your own personal. That's the
right.
biggest thing for me is, like, yes, you gotta pay the bills, yes, you gotta survive, but I think in the beginning, at least for most entrepreneurs, you probably are gonna have a job, you're probably gonna have a day job, and then that's why they call it the side hustle, where you
Hmm.
slowly, whatever, after the 40% of time you use I don't know, 20% of that extra time, because the other what? There's like another 30% that's just sleep, right?
Yeah, about a third of if we are good in our personal care
Like
and
8
try to sleep
hours, yeah.
7 to 8 hours a week, yeah, a third of our time is spent sleeping.
So so if you have a full-time 40, let's just say 40 hours, and you wanna become an entrepreneur, you you have to use that minimal time towards progress towards that, which I think is actually kind of easy if you're determined and consistent. Because I still work a part-time day job. I have some passive income coming in where I don't have to have a full-time job. So I'd probably still say probably like 25% of my time is taken, consumed towards another job. But yeah, I think you just have to like your whole time management thing, like you have to allocate a certain amount of time for yourself, for the development of yourself and whatever ambitions you have or goals you have.
Yeah, I really feel for people who have like 12-hour day jobs
Uh
who really work a lot because that's a challenge for them to try to figure out because if you're working 12 hours a day and I used to do that I worked the overnight shift early on in
mm,
my career and you found that when other people were quote playing you were sleeping because not only was the time
yeah.
shift different but the length of time that you have to work. So the personal care element is I think a lost element of how people manage their time. They're just like, oh, if I sleep a couple hours less tonight and do more, I can get more done. That's to me is not sustainable, not healthy. You still got to try to figure out, try to get at least 7 hours a
Mm.
night of sleep.
Oh
Just
yeah,
to me,
sleep is
so important.
so important.
Yeah.
Sleep is oh man. That cuz I sometimes I don't think I have insomnia, but sometimes I like will toss and turn at night, or like I won't feel like really tired until midnight-ish. And then sometimes I'll only get like 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And the next day is just, it's rough. You feel groggy, you feel unmotivated, you feel unproductive, you don't want to do anything. And it's even harder if you do have a day job and then you come back and you just want to sleep, you know?
hmm Yeah, and I same thing. That's happened to me last night. I tossed and turned. My mind, I couldn't shut my mind down. And
Mm,
obviously for entrepreneurs, that's a challenge, particularly if you're right now, it's a side hustle because you're worrying about your regular career. Then you're
mm.
stepping off into trying to get your business going. And then all of a sudden you're kind of like, all right, it's 11 o'clock, time to go to sleep. But your brain is still going 90 miles an hour and you got to try to
Yeah.
find a way to
You gotta have a
unwind on that.
bedtime routine. Yeah. I
Very
think
much so.
what I've learned after speaking to a bunch of people on the podcast about routines, because I'm pretty good at my morning routine. Like I'll take care of the animals when my girls were in school, get them ready for school, take them to school, and then I'll like work out. I'll make me some coffee. I'll take a ice bath or cold shower and then meditate for like 20 minutes. And then I wouldn't say like that's not necessarily productive, but it like, I don't know, in the words of Tony Robbins, he says it's great to prime your brain for productivity. So once you're primed, you will be more efficient in whatever work that you're doing, opposed to, I guess, just waking up and just going straight to work. You could do that too, but to me, I feel more clarity when I do the whole routine.
So I actually think that's a great investment of your time and that's actually very productive
Mm,
because that time that you're investing in prepares you to be as engaged as you can through the rest of the day.
mm-hmm.
So take that take that away and just say, okay, I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to jump in. if that's your routine, and say, take that away, and I'm going to jump into the day without doing the important personal care elements you talked about, I bet your day will probably be less productive, but you've spent more time in the work elements,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
didn't do the preparation. So I would say any listener, it's exactly what you just said. They should have some type of a routine. Now, for some people, that routine might need to come in the afternoon. If they're a morning
Yeah.
person, they might be, gosh, I really like to jump into work and do it. That's great. But if you do that, but then carve out the personal care
Personal
element
time, yeah.
later in the day, to do any workouts that you need to do,
Whatever, yeah.
any other time that you have for that. But it should be, I would highly encourage it to be a part of everyone's routine.
See, I'm good with that, but the bedtime routine is hard. Like, I just wanna watch Netflix or something, and sometimes, honestly, background noise actually helps me fall asleep. Like, if I put on a show that I know that I'm not, like, fully invested in,
Hmm.
and I won't even realize that I fell asleep, and I'll wake up and it's like, "Are you still watching?" It'll give you that, like, notice, and then I'll just turn it off. So sometimes that actually helps me, but yeah,
And I
sleep
would say,
is
if
so
in that
important.
piece, to take that a little bit further, that's where I would probably put the timer on there and just simply say,
Mm.
whether it's 60 minutes, because you kind of like, maybe it'll take me 60. And so if you fall asleep, the TV, if you got a smart TV, will
Oh,
shut
yeah.
itself off. So then you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about waking up
Finding the
because,
remote.
yeah, so, some loud commercial comes on and
Oh,
wakes
yeah.
you up. So,
That's funny. I seen that on, Mr. Bean the other day ago. You ever watch Mr. Bean?
yes, yes.
He had this skit where he was trying to fall asleep. I don't know if you ever seen that one.
No, I have not seen that one.
He was trying to fall asleep, and he was trying all these different ways to fall asleep. He couldn't fall asleep. Like, there was dogs barking, there was, he tried the white noise, like background noise, and then he tried the TV one where he just had like a boring show on. He fell asleep, and then like 5 seconds later, a loud commercial, like, and he, like, being Mr. Bean, he like was acting Mr. Beanish, I
Right.
guess.
Mr. Beanish. That's great.
And and then what finally got him to fall asleep was it was so dumb and stupid that it made it funny. He had a painting. He was like, "Oh, oh, oh, oh." Yeah, he had a painting of sheep, like 100 sheep, and he was just kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he had like a calculator, and he was like,
Of
"All
course.
right, 10 plus 10, and then when he finally hit like equals, he's like, "Oh," and then he just knocked out.
Not, um,
I
so
was like, "Oh my
actually,
god."
some of those techniques aren't bad. So I use a noise canceling, by the way, in the background. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
do.
It helps
So it's
me,
kind of from
yeah.
white noise.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing is actually doing something repetitive in your head, like counting. I know that sounds
Mm.
funny, but like counting, or even something don't say, how many clients do I, start counting your clients, because
Uh,
but
that
something
gets to
like counting,
overthinking, yeah.
or just breathe, deep breathing, just breathe, breaths in and breaths out. And that's been, now I speak all these results as someone who continues to try them, because
Yeah.
I struggle with
It's
sleep.
yeah, it's a discipline, yeah. I think one of the biggest things for me that helps me get to sleep when I have too much on my mind is literally thinking of everything that is on my mind that I'd be potentially worried about or have to do tomorrow and just writing them down.
That's another good one.
That
Yes.
really helps because something about getting like your thoughts onto physical paper, it's like, okay, it's not here anymore, it's here. And once it's here, it's okay. It's like it gives you permission to fall asleep. It's weird.
No, David Allen, the guy who wrote a book, Getting Things Done, it's kind of like a time
I heard
management
of it. Yeah.
guru.
Mm.
He actually talked about the idea, he used the analogy of our brains as being open memory, like on a computer.
Mhm.
And what do you do in a computer? When you're done with something, working on a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint, you save the file. The same thing goes for us in our
Mm.
brain. And I love the idea of writing down because you're in effect, you're saving it someplace else for your brain to reference later and it doesn't have to think about it.
It doesn't have to hold on to it. Yeah. So you wrote a book, Time Optimized Life.
That's correct. That's correct.
Can
Yeah,
you
it
tell me
was
a little
a
bit about it?
sure. For me, it started as part of my business when I recognized there were
Mm.
certain trends with people, and I kind of saw certain attributes of people's time difficulties coming to the top. It's based upon an assessment that I offer people as part of my client work, and that assessment became the outline for the book. And the premise behind the time optimized life is when people manage their time, they have a tendency to be reactive. So if I
Mm.
ask, like, for one of the first things I do when I'm working with somebody is to say, let me see your calendar. And I'll ask them to show me their calendar. And it's usually populated with a variety of blocked off times. And I say, okay, what's going on with these times you have blocked off? Well, that's either a
Mm.
meeting they initiated or someone else has invited them to a meeting. I said, well, what's going on
Mm.
with all the empty space then in your calendar? I know I try to work on my to-do list and things like that. Well, that's very reactive because then what happens if someone now puts a meeting in one of those open times? You're sitting there going, oh, okay, I can't
Mm.
do what I want to work on. So time management being reactive, to me, time optimization or time optimizing your life is flipping it around and it's being proactive in
Mm.
planning your time. So you try to get as detailed as you can about what you're going to be doing going forward. So then that way you have more of an understanding to push back or to challenge when someone wants to demand your time to help them.
Mm. Yeah, you put more value into your time.
Yeah, you're not because you have planned it out. It's not necessarily, and people aren't going to stop bugging you for the use of your time,
Yeah.
but because you have it planned out, you can negotiate better to say, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I got four things I have to do today. If
Mm.
it's your boss, you can say, you're asking me to do a fifth. Help me prioritize the rest of these other four so I can get your fifth done. Or if it's you and
Mm.
someone's asking you of your time, sorry, I already have four other things I have to do today. But let me look ahead and tell you in time that I am open that I can get together and help you. So you're more dictating how you're going to use your time now and in the future than just waiting for something to come your way.
I think it also just helps people become less of yes people. Like some people have trouble saying no. So I think once you start doing this process of planning whatever your day looks like, whatever priorities you have, and their priorities that you plan to do, and unless there's an emergency, like I'm gonna do these priorities, I think you start to value your own time more. And whenever somebody challenges your time, you'll have an easier, I guess, process saying, or you'll have an easier time saying no opposed to yes. Like, you know,
Well stated. So I actually cover that in the book, and the idea
mm,
of saying no, you don't necessarily have to use the word no. It's just your internal no. So, for example, someone
mm-hmm,
comes and interrupts you and says, "Hey, Dave, I need to use your time. I need you to stop what you're doing and help me." Typically, an example I've used before. So, okay, so tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it's no problem at all, and 10 it's a zombie apocalypse. What's your problem scale? And normally
mm,
people will kind of say, I don't think it's that important. I need you. Then you say, great, let's look at a future time where I'm able to help you and devote the time that I can. I just can't do that now. So you
mm,
can come up with a variety of things with which you can respond where you're not actually saying no, you're giving yourself and the other person to come up with some other alternatives at a future date where you can help them.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, what are your thoughts on multitasking?
I am not a fan of multitasking. I don't believe that we can do it. And there's a lot of studies out there that I've researched and looked at that kind of back that up.
They back
And
it up?
they do
It
back
backs
it
it
up
up like
that
yes or no?
you cannot multitask.
You can't.
Um,
Okay.
Now, the closest thing that I will say to really for me multitasking is a musician. So I am my favorite rock band is Rush,
I
and
like Rush.
so the lead singer came out with in January came out with his autobiography,
Oh
and
wow.
in it he talks about and he plays he's the lead singer, he plays bass and
Oh
synthesizer,
yeah.
keyboard. So he does all of these type of things. And when I was reading through the book, because I'm kind of like, wow, how can he
Hmm.
sing, play the bass, switch over to being a keyboardist? And his response or look in the book was he says we practice so much on what we need to do that he said, I will actually be in the middle of playing the bass, singing, and in my head, I'm going, okay, the next song we have to play is X.
Nice.
He said, because we have
What?
conditioned ourselves so much
Mm,
and put so many hours in. So I try to tell, so I
mm,
use that same analogy to say, okay, let's say you're at work, you go into the staff meeting, and the boss is going to, it's a weekly staff meeting, and you want to
mm.
bring your computer in with you because you're kind of like, gosh, I got to answer some emails. Got to be able to do that. My question to you is, how many hours are you going to be able to spend to be able to fully answer an email while your boss is talking at the same time? And if you think you can do that, good luck. How do you think your boss is going to feel while you're sitting there typing an email going, I got you, boss. I got you, boss. No worry. I'm hearing you. So I try
Mhm.
to tell people really the idea of multitasking becomes a myth because if you're well at as a musician playing two things, your brain has taught itself to do those two things at one time, but you're really not multitasking because your brain doesn't look at it as multitasking. It's not switching between the two.
Yeah. And that also, um, it when you begin to multitask, you decrease productivity because every time you switch, I guess there's a thing called task switching.
Hmm.
You decrease your focus and productivity every time you task switch because it takes your brain time to, I guess, get like to me, sometimes I'll get into like flow states where I'm just like ultra focused, like I'll just be ultra focused, ultra productive and get so much done in
Right.
like not that much time. And then but if you're constantly switching, it'll take you longer than it would have if you were to just stay focused.
That's correct. And if see like people are saying, "Well, I want to multitask." I said, "Actually, what you're doing is you're microtasking." So
Mm,
you're switching from one task to the other. And I said, as long as you can devote, like if you say, I need to work on this for 5 minutes because I know a client's going to call me in 5 minutes, then
mm,
what you do is you dive into that task for a minute to 5 minutes, giving it 100% of your attention, knowing that then when the phone call happens with the client, you stop doing that task, shift to the client, answer the call, do whatever you have to do there, then dive back into it. And so it's really more what I call microtasking at small time intervals than it is really multitasking.
I think the closest thing for me for multitasking is probably cooking.
Very good. Very fair. Yes.
Like I'll have something in the oven, then I'll like be making eggs, and then I'll have coffee going, like all at the same time.
But at some point, you're going to have to give the divided
Yeah,
attention
yeah, yeah,
to at least
exactly.
the main dish or the side dish. You have three things going at the same time, but you know that, okay, gosh, I've got to, so like if I'm making breakfast, the potatoes are over here simmering. Oh, got to
Yeah,
go flip the eggs. And so I'm going to
yeah.
give all my attention to that.
Yeah, I used to work a grill job, and they had us set timers for everything had a timer on it. So sometimes you'll hear timers just going off. It's like it just gets hectic. Like, oh, I gotta get the chicken. Oh, the rice came off. We gotta get the rice. Don't let that burn. And oh, now we have to chop it up. Like, yeah.
That I have a lot of respect for people in the food service industry,
Man,
particularly
it's
chefs
rough.
and
Yeah.
cooks, how they're able to do that. Because while we're out in the dining room going, "Where's my
Just
food?"
enjoying our food.
They're in the back doing all kinds of activities just to make it happen.
It's stressful. Yeah. It's stressful. Um, so did we cover did we cover everything about time? We haven't covered everything about time. How do we optimize? Like, what is the optimized time? Like, what would the ideal optimized life of time look like?
So I use a principle called PEC, or
Mm,
preparation, execution, and control. So the idea behind it is that you have to invest time to use your time well. So you've got something coming up, a task, an activity, or a project. The boss is making you do something. You're an entrepreneur. You got a client presentation. So the idea in the preparation phase, when you hit the P of PEC, is you invest time trying to say what is the outcome I want to achieve and what are the right steps within that preparation that I have to do to achieve the outcome that I want. So you invest time at the beginning.
mm,
So once you feel you've got a good preparation set up for that, you move over to the execution phase. And as you
mm,
begin to execute against how you've prepared everything, you'll find out very quickly whether I prepared correctly or not. So you might have to say, as you start to execute, ooh, I hadn't thought about these two other things. So you stop what you're
mm.
doing, you go back and re-prepare or prepare a little bit more, dive back into execution. So let's say you're executing okay, everything's going all right. The control element, or the C of PEC, says I'm going to hold myself accountable to completing the execution of what I need to do in the time frame that I designed in the preparation phase. And if you
Mm.
find you're not, like it's taking you longer to execute, then you say on the control element, do I either need to change how I have to execute or go all the way back up and prepare a little bit more, then dive back in? And so the three
Yeah, it's
continuously
a
work
circle,
together.
yeah.
Yes.
So what happens when we feel like we lose control of our time management?
That's where there's a lot of symptoms when we don't have control over time management. We have a tendency to
Mhm.
procrastinate. And procrastination, I define it as you intentionally delay something that you know is going to harm
Yeah.
you by delaying. And that's
Yeah,
that.
I
Go ahead.
procrastinate. Yeah, I notice when I procrastinate, it's how do I feel?
Probably
I
anxious, frustrated,
anxious, I know my stress levels are a little bit higher. I
guilt
and the
is another
task
one.
Yeah, and the task may not even be like a hard task. It may be a simple task. You just keep pushing it like further and further away, and I think you actually feel better when you just do it instead of like the longer you wait on the procrastination of whatever task you're procrastinating on, I think the worse it gets. Like the more anxious you'll get, the more stressed you get. I think if you give yourself the time to just do it and get it done, it alleviates that stress that was caused from you procrastinating.
It does. It self-feeds on itself the longer the time
Yeah.
goes. And usually when people procrastinate, it's because they haven't defined the task well enough. So
Mm,
I use an example like, in my room behind me, I've got white walls. If I
mm,
wanted to paint the walls in my room, if I just said, okay, my goal is to repaint the room. Well, if I could go on for weeks like that, saying, well, I didn't paint the room. When
oh,
you
yeah.
define it though, to say,
Specific.
I have to get the supplies. I got to pick the color. What color
Mhm.
do I want to repaint the wall? When am I going to want to do that? How long do I think it's going to take? And when you break that procrastination down into smaller chunks and define
Mm,
them as tasks on their own, then you get to see progress. So, okay, I went to the
mm,
store and picked the paint colors and got the supplies. Boom, I can check that off. I am
yeah.
now on the road to painting the room. Then it's kind of like, now I need to pick the time. Is it going to be next Tuesday? Great. I got no
Mm,
client calls. I'm going to do it on Tuesday. And you set the time, block it off in your calendar. And as you see the progress, then ultimately you say, hey, look, the room's done. So that's typically where people need to take that item and break it down a little bit more.
yeah. So specific and clear task, not vague and broad.
Hmm.
That helps with
Correct.
procrastination.
Yes.
That's good.
Easier said than done because you got to be disciplined to follow it. So, but that's typically
Yeah.
and procrastination it's the second in my research and through the assessments that have come through. It's the second biggest time
Mhm.
management challenge for people, but it's the most economically impacted for businesses because people
Mm.
usually procrastinate on the big things and those have economic challenges or benefits. But distractions are actually the biggest single time management
Yeah.
challenge for people right now.
How do you feel about distractions? Like especially social media, we have a hand computer in our hand and pockets all the time. How do you feel about that?
That's it right there. The smartphone
Mm.
has is the single most productive and simultaneously unproductive tool
Yeah, it's
we
crazy.
have in our hands. It can do amazing things for us. The time savings that I have because of what is of
Capable.
yeah, what it's capable for us to do is pretty impressive. But at the same time, like you said, social media, I get sucked into it all the time. My parents were both smokers. I've never smoked, but they smoked.
Mm.
And one of the things that they told me about was is my dad would say, how did I get this cigarette in my hand? Because he would try to stop smoking, but before I know it, he would just light up. I
The
have the
habit.
same thing
The
with my
habit,
phone.
yeah.
Like all of a sudden, I've got my phone in my hand and I've got
Yeah.
LinkedIn open, and I'm going, "What is that? What just happened here?" Um,
Yeah, it's like a habitual habit or
it
something
is.
like that.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. I'm bad at the in the morning.
Oh, me too.
I do that in the morning. Like I'll open up uh and I make the excuse that I'm like because being a podcaster, you like social media is part of your work. That you have to like it's marketing, you want to get the podcast out there, you want people to
Yes.
see, you want to potentially get sponsors or whatever. You want something to go viral. So I always use that as an excuse. So that's the first thing I'll do. I would open up Instagram, YouTube, check if any of my posts got views, likes, comments, whatever, and then I'll go about my day.
Whereas,
So,
and I'm the same way. Anyone who's an entrepreneur, social
mm,
media
marketing, yeah,
marketing is almost it has to be a has to tool for just about all of us. And
yeah,
so, yeah, I want to know, did that content I put out generate interest to help me understand? Do I need to do more of that particular content to try to draw people to want to see what I do or hear what I do? The challenge is for us in that time frame is, and I'm just like you. I try to be disciplined not to check it in the morning.
Mm,
It's a habit now. I have to break that habit. But that's where you say, can I wait until after you're done, for your example, in the personal
yeah,
care element? Can I wait until after I work out, get get the kids set, do my morning activities
like another
before I need
habit, yeah,
yes,
to
before I need to
replace that
check it.
one. Mhm.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, David, is there anything we haven't covered about time before I
Well,
move on?
I could
I feel
I
like you
could
could talk about time
we could
forever.
talk about this all
Yeah.
day. No, I would just say those that one the reason why I mentioned distractions
Mhm,
is it's the single biggest challenge for people today. And what I would recommend that people do is start there. If you want to figure out how can I improve my time, put structure around your smartphone. Only
mm,
look at it at certain times.
yeah.
And the great thing about time optimization is when you get better at one area, let's say you put discipline on your smartphone, you're going to find you're going to do better in other areas of managing your time. So that's where I would just suggest for them to start.
Yeah, I started reading this book called The Road Less Traveled, and he said something about time in there. He said, "Yeah, I always told myself I was mechanically challenged." And that hit me hard because I'm the same way. Like, I'm not handy at all. I don't like fiddling with mechanical stuff. Anything Costco, or not Costco, IKEA, like furniture. And he said one day he had a neighbor that was very handy and would always fix stuff. And he was like, "Man, how do you do that? You're just so good at it." And he's like, Well, have you taken the time to just sit down and give yourself the time to just look at each piece and figure out where it goes?" And it's like a puzzle.
Hmm.
You find a certain piece and it goes here, and then once you take the time, you'll be able to figure it out. And yeah, sometimes we just don't give ourselves the time.
I write about that in the book actually because as growing up, as my kids grew up, I don't know how many things I put together. And if I took the time to read and follow the instructions, which I didn't do often, I just tried to put it together. It took me more time if I just tried to do it on my own. So sometimes, again, the preparation, pair a little bit and it'll save you the time.
So the card game is called Where Should We Begin?
Okay.
I'll read you the instructions real quick. It's so simple. It's a game about amazing connection, sharing, listening, risk taking, laughter, and discovery. There's a prompt card to guide you, and a story card to inspire you to tell the stories you rarely tell. I already picked out randomly the combination, so they go together.
Okay.
So share something gutsy about family gatherings, bring up blank.
All right. So I share something about a family gathering, huh?
Share something gutsy about family gatherings.
So for me, family gatherings, my wife and we go to some of her family gatherings. We go to some of my family gatherings. My annual thing is my sister does her Thanksgiving. She does
Yeah,
Thanksgiving dinner. And for what she does there that is kind of gutsy, which it used to annoy my brother and I, is now she does some family activity. She makes us all get together and do some game, do something else. And I am kind of the cranky old fart who's kind of like, why do I have
mm,
to do this? And it
yeah.
really annoyed me, but she does it, and she does something different every year, and actually, by the time I get done with it, everyone seems to have a lot of fun. So kudos to my sister for pushing us to do something different every year.
I like that because But why do you feel like the cranky old man? Let me ask you
'Cause
that first.
well, because normally we're just sitting there having some conversations, just kinda
Ah,
dialoguing back and forth, and then all of a sudden, she's like, "Okay,
uh,
everybody, it's time to do this," and I'm like, "Wait, I'm having a
yeah.
good conversation," so, that's but
Okay.
I've because she's done it enough, I now know to realize at some point
You're
we're doing
expecting it.
something. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to know why, because you could get like thrown off sometimes where it's like, oh, that wasn't expecting that.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. Well, I guess it goes back to the time thing too. It's like sometimes you have to give yourself the time, the feeling of time to just relax and have fun too.
Very much so because we all run at 100 miles an hour. And of course, just think of a family gathering at dinner. So whoever is the host, they got a lot of time they have to invest to
Oh,
get the
yeah,
meal
yeah.
prepared, and then everybody comes and they have a good time. And then you got to spend all that time cleaning up afterwards.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that can
That's
bring
the
a
worst
level of
part of,
stress in itself. Yes.
that's the worst part. Nobody wants to do that. Well, David, you ready for my final questions?
I am ready.
My first question is, what is your biggest regret?
Ooh, my biggest regret. Well, let me start by saying that uh, while they are regrets, um, it is also something that has helped define me better as a person. So
Mhm.
I regret probably not spending or being more dedicated when my kids were younger to
Mm,
participating in some of the things that they did. That's because I had this misnomer of needing to invest a lot of time in my career to quote get ahead.
yeah.
And and but then I look back on it now and I say now I am trying to be totally more involved in their life, proactive. I'm proactively saying what can I do? And I have great relationships with both my boys, and I'm going to be a
Mm,
grandfather here in September.
oh,
So I'm really looking forward to that
congrats.
new phase in life. Thank you.
Yeah. No, yeah, because that's something I think of every day because, you know, like I want to do this as my side hustle that I turn into my full-time thing. And then at the same time, I want to be there for my kids and watch them grow. And the younger they are, it's like, and the older they get, the less innocent they get, the more knowledge they know about the world and how the world works. And I just try to be as honest as possible and just be straightforward. I'm not the type of parent that likes to sugarcoat stuff. I'll literally just tell
Good.
them straight up, like, this is how it is. This is how the world works. Um, like my daughters, it's funny because, you don't really know what you want to do when you grow up all the time. Life happens, things change all the time. Like, I didn't know I wanted to be a podcaster until last year, and I'm 29.
Awesome.
So
Right.
that, and then, yeah, I was telling my daughter, like, oh, like, they were like, I want to be rich. I want to have whatever I want. And then my other daughter was like, uh, why do you have to work, Daddy? Like, why can't we just get money like magic? And like things like that, like they're starting to ask these questions, and I just tell them the same thing. Like, when you get older and become an adult, you find what you want to do, and you try to earn a living, or make money from whatever you like to do. And my one daughter, she wants to be a chef, start a chef business. And my other daughter, she likes to draw. She says she wants to
Oh,
sell
nice.
her art.
Yeah.
And it's funny because she'll like come home from school and have a new drawing and be like, Daddy, can I sell this now? Like,
What I love about so, kids grow up fast. Everyone always
hmm,
says that. and they do, but
Yeah.
have learned to really appreciate the various stages that they're in.
Okay.
And now to see my two adult kids
Yeah.
make really cool decisions. They don't make every decision they make, I don't agree with, but who cares?
Yeah.
That's their life. But just
Yeah.
to be able to sit back and watch now the decisions they're making as an adult is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's tough because especially they say teen years are the worst because because when you become a teen, something in your brain like snaps into place where you're like, wait a minute, I'm my own person now. I don't have to listen to everything you say. I can do whatever I want. Technically, you can, but yeah, I think there's just certain foundations, certain boundaries growing up, and then once they become an adult, yeah, everybody's their own individual.
Yeah, we had a friend tell us one time as her kids were a little older than ours, and our kids were heading into the teen years, and oh, we're going,
Hmm.
wow, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And she said, don't worry. She said, you'll always love your kids. Just know at some point you'll like them again. You know, that's,
Uh,
because there is that
certain
battle back and
phases.
forth. Yes.
Yeah.
And so she said, the love is there. It's always there. She said, you'll like them again when at some point when they're a little older and they're out of
Hmm.
the wackiness of what it is to be a teenager.
Well, one thing I always tell people is once you have kids yourself, you start to appreciate your parents more
Very
because
true.
now you're walking in the shoes that they did to raise you. So now you know what it feels like firsthand to have your own kids. So to me, it made me appreciate and let go of whatever resentments we had because we have a dysfunctional family, I guess, and me and my siblings used to resent my mom for not being there, and after having kids, it made me appreciate her like way more.
Parents have to make tough choices
Sacrifices,
and sacrifices and things like that, given whatever the family
whatever
dynamics.
circumstance, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something again. It goes back to how do you how can you use your time? Where do you need to invest? What's more important
Mm, the
during those
priorities,
particular
yeah.
those priorities, and there's a lot of tough choices that parents have to make, not only for their own situations but in the raising of a family as well. And I know you go
Mhm.
through that probably, Thomas. You have to make tough choices in what's going on in your life, and not all those choices, they could be they could not be the best. You have to basically
Mhm.
take a choice
It's
that
gonna
to
be
you
difficult, yeah.
is each one is difficult. Yes.
Mhm. Well, David, my next question is who or what has made the biggest impact in your life so far that makes you who you are today?
Well, that's a good question. I am gonna well, my Christian faith has a huge
Mm,
impact, but to focus it on one individual person, I'm gonna say that's my wife. So
mm.
we've been married over 30 years,
Oh, wow.
and I knew she was the first woman that I dated that was like, this is the one.
Oh,
And
wow, really?
she has encouraged me, she's challenged me, and I would not be the man or I would not be the father I was today if it was not for her care, love, and wanting me to succeed in the best way that I can.
I love that. I think your life partner can make a profound impact in how your life looks, to be
Very much so.
honest,
Very much so.
whether good or bad.
Hmm.
Uh, my next question is, what's one lesson that you had to learn the hard way?
Patience, and I still
Patience.
have to. Uh, I realize so typically I'll plan time out for something, and if it goes longer, I get frustrated. And so all through my life, if I had just There are things I know that I stopped doing that if I had waited a little bit longer, they probably would have, I probably would have benefited from it. And then I have examples in my life where I was patient enough to go through and came out the other side saying, I wish or I'm glad I stuck with that. So I still try to work around and understand I need to be more patient when things go on.
I like the patience aspect because I think once you, I guess, correlate patience with your emotions and feelings, I think it allows you to process emotions and feelings more efficiently and more healthily.
I
Like
like
if
that.
like think about when you're frustrated, like what do you usually do? Do you get triggered? Do you like whatever to anyone listening, whatever emotions you feel, you usually act a certain way in accordance with these emotions. But I think like you were saying, when you learn patience and allow yourself the time and patience to sit with these feelings, I think it allows you to process them more healthily.
Yeah, and I try to coach people to say, if you've got something important you have to do, literally you may need to add up to 50% more time to get it
Mm,
done. Because it always takes good things, difficult things, they always take longer than you anticipate. So you need to build
mm,
that into whatever you're doing, uh, because something's going to go wrong. It's not going to go as planned. But if it's important enough, you know you're going to devote the time to it. So why not try to gauge that up front a little bit?
I like to tell people who are maybe entrepreneurs, maybe people with big ambitions, that for me, for the instant gratification and delaying gratification thing, it's kind of like that. Like once you, well, first off, you have to like it a little bit. First off, you have to have a little bit of passion with uh for it, so that when you get discouraged, you can keep doing it because you have a passion for it and you have a big enough reason and purpose behind it. But yeah, I think when you just when you give yourself the time and you look at it on a bigger scale, you can get back on track whenever you fall off, um, and delay that gratification because I guess full circle into the patience thing. When you're patient, sometimes good things happen to you when you least expect it.
I like that. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but if you can be, you're right. Or you'll get clarity. If
Mm,
you may even get clarity that says, if you're patient, that says, wow, okay, maybe I need to do this differently, or maybe I
yeah.
need to stop even doing it as well. And then feel good that you stopped at the right time instead of either too soon and then you wonder.
Mm. This next question is it's a good one for you. What would you want to experience in life if you had all the time and all the money in the world?
Ooh, what would I want to experience? Um, I would love to uh, hike uh, portions, as much as I could, of the Alps in Europe. Love to do that. So if time wasn't an issue, money wasn't an issue, I would be backpacking through Europe uh, on the Alps because that's one of my bucket list items is to go to a hike part of the German Alps.
And my final question is, do you have any final insights that you would like to resonate with the audience?
I would just go back to what we talked about earlier and say, please look at your time proactively. Go out, try to anticipate what you need to carve out time for so that you have the ability to negotiate when other people want or demand your time. You've got a plan in place that you can either serve them at that time and be able to still get done what you need to do, or negotiate further out to maintain your priorities.
David Buck, everyone. Where can people check you out?
Thanks. So if you want to go to infinitylifestyledesign.com, again, one word, infinitylifestyledesign.com. You can just go there. Once you get on the front page, you'll see all the services I offer for people in career to help improve their productivity, and for people who are thinking about heading into post-career, doing a lifestyle strategy that fits and gives them meaning and purpose.
Go check them out, everyone. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thanks, Thomas.
And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.